All right, with that revelation also, Homa Bay MP Peter Kaluma has drafted a bill that, if adopted, will see the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission officers nominated by majority and minority parties. If his idea sails through, commissioners nominated by both Jubilee Party and National Super Alliance MPs will oversee the 2022 general election. Mr. Kaluma's proposal is similar to one by the Inter-Parties Parliamentary Group IPPG of 1997, where political parties nominated members to the defunct Electoral Commission of Kenya, ECK. The IPPG then comprised Kenya African National Union, Democratic Party, Ford Kenya, Ford Asili, and Safina. The parties were allocated slots in ECK according to their strength in Parliament. The parties then forwarded their nominees to the President for appointment. Kaluma's proposal comes as the National Assembly's Justice and Legal Affairs Committee is working on amendments to the IEBC Act to provide for appointment of a selection panel to fill vacancies yet to be announced by President Uhuru Kenyatta. Kaluma wants a law that states the commission established under Article 88 of the Constitution shall consist of a chairperson and 4 other members appointed in accordance with Article 250, subsection 4. He wants 2 persons, a man and a woman, nominated by the majority party or coalition of parties, 2 persons, a man and a woman nominated by a minority party or coalition of parties, and an advocate of a high court elected by the advocate's professional body. The bill further proposes that the National Assembly shall, within 14 days of receiving the names, approve or reject all the nominees, taking into account gender, regional, and ethnic diversity. We want to hear from you as well with this particular development, and of course we shall be discussing this and a raft of other issues with our panelists this morning, looking also at the Western politics and what is happening with the talk about referendum as well. Allow me this morning to introduce to you once again Senator Aaron Cheriot, who is a senator from Kericho. Earlier on at the top of the hour we introduced him. Also we do have with us Otene Amolo, who is the Member of Parliament from Rarieda. We have with us as well Dr. Boni Khalwale, who is the Deputy Leader of Ford Kenya, also the former Senator of Kakamega. We have with us as well Jacob Mediwo, who is a former Member of Parliament of Game. And also we have Moses Kuria with us as well, Member of Parliament from Gatundu South. Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning.
Good morning. So we have this revelation that IEBC is saying, yes, that the election was transparent, and NASA were trying to, push the body against the wall as far as transparency is concerned. And we know that Otene Molo, actually, you were very vocal, of course, in courts in regard to what really happened with that particular election. Do you stand, or do you also hold with the view that we're getting so far from these commissioners?
Well, good morning.
Good morning,
viewers. And first, let's condole with those who we have lost this last week, including Professor Wanjala,
yes,
who passed on, including my other friend Akechieng, who I think is to be buried this week. But secondly, I watched that clip.
Yes.
And I think it's Senator Mutula Kilonzo Jr. who ignited the debate. And I think his question was very simple. His question was that in light of the handshake and in view of the fact that we now have an opportunity to tell the truth, could the commissioners tell the Kenyans what became of the server?
Yes.
Why it could not be accessed? Why the results could not be disclosed? And I saw one of the commissioners, I think, respond by saying that each presidential candidate had access to the server, and therefore they knew the results. Now, that is a flat lie. That is not true. Indeed, that is the reason the Supreme Court ordered that the server be accessed by the parties. But secondly, and more importantly, to date, the IEBC has never explained to Kenyans why it could not allow the server to be accessed. Even after the Supreme Court case was done with, even after the second presidential election, they have never disclosed. And I remember there's a time my brother here, Senator Cheriot, dared and said that they had since released the results of the server, and he promised to come back here the next week and share with us. He never did, because he could not access them. To date, no one has accessed that thing. So I think the commissioners, I agree with the chairman when he says that anyone who sabotages an election, including the last election, is a criminal who should not stay in this country and they should be prosecuted. And he offered that even if that includes commissioner. I agree with him, because I think most of them should actually be in jail, not just for the audit issues, but when you sabotage the will of the people,
yes,
then you are actually the biggest criminal ever.
Yes.
Because people must always know what that will is, what that result is, freely, without question and without hiding anything. So I think that it is time, and to this extent I agree with the proposal by Kaluma, it is time to relook at the question of IEBC. I may not agree, so far I've not looked at the bill, but I may not agree with some of the proposals, but I agree that we need to relook at the edifice of IEBC at this early stage. We have this tendency of leaving these matters, and just before elections, then we start some very ferocious debate and ferocious processes of appointment, and that becomes part of our problem.
Right. So, Senator Aaron Chirwe, do you think also we're picking a scab on already healing wound as far as election is concerned with this revelation from IEBC? Was it called for?
Well, in my opinion, first of all, good morning, Debal and Kenyans, and also I'd wish to join my colleague, Dr. Otiende, in condoling with the family of the Don, Professor Anjala, as a literally icon. As a student of literature, I really enjoyed his reading and interactions with him.
Yes.
Then as a university student, but
yes.
now he's rested. We say rest well, our icon.
Yeah, that story is on the front page of the Daily Nation. What he's really talking about literature Don Chris Wanjala dies in hospital. Colleagues pay glowing tribute to Professor for his vast contribution to the nation as a scholar, mentor, writer, and one of the country's most consistent literary critics. Sorry about that. Continue.
Thank you. Back to this IEBC issue. I really don't know what is the value of us discussing it. What will it help us as a country? Otiende has his opinion. I have my opinion. I guess even on this panel, I can tell what everybody will say about it. And the whole country knows. Of course, as the party that I come from, we strongly believe that we won the election fair and square. What Otiende and company are involving themselves in is a usual gimmick that they're used to after every election of never conceding or accepting any election result, except only the ones that they win, like Migori last week. But the rest of the ones that they don't get to win, it becomes either fraudulent or something that did not go right. Having said that, the big question on my mind is what value is this debate? The only valuable part of this debate is what now Otiende says in his concluding remarks, which I agree with him entirely, that the most ideal time for us to discuss this IEBC issue is now, 4 years or 3.5 years down to an election, rather than go through the usual ritual, our typical Kenyan habit of waiting until last minute, then last 8 months. You know, sometimes we blame these commissioners of the 2017 election too much, and we keep on forgetting that we delayed their entry into office until about 6 to 8 months into an election. Even if you are a superhuman, 8 months in any institution is so little for you to understand the complexities of any institution, let alone an institution that manages something as complex as a Kenyan election. And therefore, the debate that has been ignited by Kaluma is an extremely healthy one. I think one of the things that we need to do is, as political parties, we need to retreat into our caucuses and perhaps take a firm position on what we think will be an ideal proposal. I do not agree with this proposal to have nomination of commissioners by political parties. I think it's too risky. Sending someone who, from the very onset, they know that their brief is to pull towards one side, that is a political party or the political formation that nominated them. I still think that if we follow the criteria as is, the problem, in my opinion, is the timing with which we take commissioners into office. Remember, Justice Kriegler, in his report, he told us that for the kind of complexities that one has to wade through when running a Kenyan election, you must have at least 2 years as a commissioner, having been in office, get to study, understand the operations of IEBC for you to deliver a credible election. Therefore, this is the ideal time. I still insist that we remain with the current formula of nominating by various bodies, but do it now, not any other time. Now is the most ideal time. This current group of 3 commissioners, I think they have an egg on their face in light of what has happened and all these tribulations.
All right. Let's hear from Boni Khalwale. Do you also hold with this view that we shouldn't really go the way as Peter Kaluma is actually proposing that the parties should nominate the commissioners into IEBC. We had IPPG. Did it work? From your own experience, as far as this particular element is concerned, where we are piggybacking on the IPG's idea? IPPG.
I want to hold that Honorable Kaluma, at least he's speaking to the way forward. And also, IEBC itself seems to be keen on speaking on the way forward, as evidenced by the sacking of the infamous Chiroba. However, allow me to assert from the bottom of my heart,
yes,
that to be engaged in this kind of discourse about IEBC, whether the elections were rigged or not, at this stage, it is actually a rigmarole that is meaningless, that cannot result in anything. What we need is to accept that bygones are bygones, and as they say somewhere in English, there's no benefit from flogging a dead horse. As they would say in some parts of this country where we use oxen for plowing, you can't flog an ox which is dead. I therefore want to urge members of parliament to take the bill by Honorable Kaluma seriously, but also be cautious. They must learn from our history. Attempts by Kaluma in this bill, which I haven't read fully, but I've seen snippets, to give the impression that if you involve political coalitions or political parties is a panacea, is a lie, members of parliament, because you'll remember the commission where Isaac Hassan was the chair. Actually, ODM nominated quite a number of those commissioners, and they ended up turning against ODM in quotes. So it's not a question of which party nominates, but a process that is geared towards identifying men and women of impeccable character.
All right, Jacomi, do you also agree with this particular draft bill, or you think should we take it in its entirety, or there's some snippet of it that we should do away with?
I only agree to the extent that political parties should actually be the ones involved in the political process. I think most of these commissioners...
And what will be the political process?
Political process is an election, for example. That's the finality. And in my view, I think we have been doing this the wrong way. So I agree with Kaluma. But I disagree to the extent that I want that reform to be part of a bigger constitutional review process. And why do I say that? I do not believe that elections should be limited to the big picture of the national election, because we need the issue of MCAs to be addressed. We need the issue of how we deal with this issue of one-third gender rule, and I believe that it is high time we put our elections in the hands of devolved governments. I think that's the right direction to go, because we are electing so many people using a national policy that is not working for the devolved governments. I don't think it is working. I want to disagree with the chairman of IEBC when he says that he is independent. Then he says when he's doing a meeting, some people go out to call politicians or call godfathers. I mean, just shows how incompetent the system is. It shows. I mean, for him to admit that his decisions are influenced from by phone calls, that to me I think is fallacious. I think he needs to style up a bit. But I also know the time for IEBC as we know it is gone. We need to localize our elections.
All right.
We need to devolve them fully. Yeah.
Okay, let's hear also from Moses Kuria. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you very much, Dibal. I think I want to agree with Senator Cheriot that it's actually an exercise in futility, trying to get back at who won, who didn't win, what happened in 2017. But then I really support the initiative by Honorable Kaluma to introduce a bill that touches on IEBC. Because I've been on record severally this year decrying the fact that after what happened last year, IEBC is not an issue. And even those guys, including people in NASA, who are very vocal about IEBC, it's not an issue for them anymore, despite the fact that we have got dilapidated commission, 3 out of 7. And then, you know, last year, or rather in 2016, we had a bipartisan committee in Parliament, both the National Assembly and Senate, where the Honorable Bonnie Carole and myself were part of the 7-member committee with 5 others that looked at these issues. And we know very well that we gave Kenya a commission less than 2 months before the general election. Procurement, court rulings were happening 7 days. 7 days before the election. And now we have the audacity to say the infamous Chiroba, as if he was supposed to work some miracles. My point is that, first of all, Chebukati should be the last person to condemn anyone. I've never seen someone so incompetent, so wishy-washy, so dithering, so, you know, he's pathetic. In fact, he should be the first one to go. And he's the one who almost plunged this country into chaos because of indecisiveness. But then the bigger culprit is ourselves as a country, because we always want to see electoral matters using partisan political lenses. So it was a mistake, by the way, because we had proposed, and I think Bonnie Carole is my witness, that I had said that our committee of 7 members, led by Olengo and Kiraitu, ought to have been like sort of an overseer over the electoral process. Because I agree with Jacob Midio. This is a political process. And you cannot remove the stakeholders. The key stakeholders are politicians. So what we had during that bipartisan parliamentary committee was a sort of a shock absorber, a heat absorber, whereby we were saying, because we don't want to keep on blaming technocrats, let IEBC consist of technocrats. But let's have a bipartisan process as an oversight. So I think I like where Kaluma is starting from.
Yes.
And I like the fact that we need to have all parties involved in that process. Maybe not necessarily as commissioners, but maybe we need to have an oversight political process of the IEBC. Because I, as Moses Kuria, would do anything possible to ensure that when we have an election, winners take power and losers accept defeat and the country goes forward. Because the biggest danger we have as a country is whereby people do not accept results. And I will really go to any extent to ensure that, even to assuage them, if by what Kaluma is doing is going to make people accept results. Because we seem, and this is where I see the dangers of the handshake, we seem to be ascribing to a notion that there is any other process of getting leaders for this country other than the democratic process. There's no other way.
Right, so thank you. So you seem, but that is where we have the tripping wire, where the winner takes it all and people do not really accept defeat, and we have, you know, the sort of...
Elections were made to make winners take it all. And that's not just here in Kenya. Where is Hillary Clinton? Didn't Trump take it all? Did she die? Did she start saying that the election was not fair? You know, people are bastardizing democracy.
But you didn't win. The whole point, Deba, you know, when you let Korea deceive the nation early in the morning, he never won. Those things have caveats. I do not think either side won, and I was an independent candidate. You know, hence the handshake. So use the handshake to reorganize our country. you have never won these elections. You know when you come with such strong opinion of a winner, you never won nothing.
But that is according to your opinion.
No, but you said you are going to present papers.
All right.
Honorable Chairman,
I don't want to
Honorable, what you need to do, the bar,
Thank you. Just
allow
no,
everybody to make their opinion.
Yeah, they will. They will.
2013, we didn't have a winner.
All right, thank you.
2017,
Thank you, Moses Kuria. Thank you. Let's hear from Otiende Omolo, because if you hack back to who won and who didn't won, we'll still be also not really making any headway in this discussion this morning. But let's see. We're talking about IEBC reforms and where they failed and where they did not fail, their successes, their challenges as well. With these particular reforms that now we are actually looking at this morning with Peter Kaluma's draft bill, do you think in any way, if we don't, we can pick up what I said, some sentiments of something that will be successful in the formation of IEBC, and something that maybe we need to throw it away? Because he says Article 240, he says that Article 88 of the Constitution shall consist of a chairperson and 4 other members appointed in accordance with Article 250, subsection 4. Maybe you can lend your legal mind on this as well this morning, briefly.
Thank you, but let's put things in perspective. I think the starting point by my brother, Senator Cheriot, and Dr. Luale, is that this debate is not useful. Which may be well, because we didn't start it. We picked it because the question was posed and the IEBC itself responded, and so you invited our opinion on it. So it's not us who started it. But having said that, secondly, if you say it is not helpful, then you continue and say somebody should accept defeat, then you are going exactly opposite what you are trying to advocate. Because when you say, let us leave the debate, then don't go to the old debate of saying there are some people who don't accept to lose, because then it invites both the legal and factual. Now, the legal position so far is that the elections you are talking about were nullified. And the second set of election was boycotted by more than half the country. So that is a fact. Now, I agree with Dr. Halwale that sometimes we don't need to revisit these things because it unnecessarily ignites hostilities and negative feelings. But it is also true that part of our problem in this country is to always try and forget things that are real. The only way to solve matters in future is not to distort history, to accept history as it is, and then to find a way of working with it. So I agree that there's a way we should not frame the debate as to ignite hostilities.
Yes.
But it does not mean that we can never talk about it, because we'll never get it right. Let me come to the question of the bill. First, as I indicated, and I think all of us in the panel here have not read the bill, because it has, to the best of my knowledge, it has not even been published.
Yes.
And therefore, we would be speaking in some level of ignorance if we dwell too much into it. But so far, of what I have gleaned from the papers,
yes,
it's a suggestion in terms of numbers, it's a suggestion in terms of mode of appointment of commissioners. The history of this country, for us to have that debate, we must remember first, our history is that previously commissioners of IEBC were picked entirely through the presidency and the executive. It is that was changed to an extent through the IPPG, and therefore it became parliamentary, at least to allow parliament to be involved. And that was very important because it brought the first semblance of having an electoral body that does not serve only one side. But even that appears not to have worked in our favor too well, because in 2007, Kivuitu's team, which had been appointed in that manner, appeared to have failed again. So we came to the third stage, and that stage was temporary. Remember the first time Isaac Hassan was appointed, they were an interim body which was dealing with boundaries and also election.
Yes.
Now, at that point, they were appointed through a process similar to the one that appointed the committee of experts and the others. It was a situation of bringing in experts and infusing them with international personalities. And so all the bodies that were appointed at that time, you could say they were appointed on the basis of experts and infused with international personalities. But they were appointed, of course, also through parliamentary initiative, but as independent experts. Mm-hmm. That is how all these bodies, including TJRC, was formulated. Now, when it came to the Constitution then adopted a bit of that, but moved away from the parliamentary narrative. So, the scheme of the constitution, and this is where I agree with Jacoyo, if you are to go that way, you can't just solve it in a bill. You have to look at the constitution, and I'll demonstrate why. But now the constitution brings the IEBC as among the body of independent commissions, all of which are supposed to be independent just the way judges are independent. Now, the question is, if they fail, and judges have failed us, sometimes even the Supreme Court, even the Court of Appeal and all that, do we then change the mode of their appointment and make them appointed by parliamentary parties or not?
Thank you.
I think what we should focus on is why they fail. Now, let me explain this. Article 88 contemplates, tries, okay, the constitution as it is now, tries to make parliament have a say in terms of approval of commissioners, but not participate deeply. And that is why Article 88, for example, bars anybody who has been a politician or stood for election for the last 5 years from eligibility. Article 250 makes the commissioners totally independent, including of political parties. Now, therefore, the thinking of the constitution is to have experts who are independent of political parties. It is true that that has also failed us. So when we go back to re-examine, when we go back to where we were in 1997, is that progression or regression? That is the debate that we must have. Is there any way we can actually solve the problem at IEBC without going back to where we were a couple of decades? And that's what we will have to focus on.
That is what we'll have to focus. Yes, do we hail it a success or not, that we can piggyback on it and ride, of course, with this proposal from Peter Kaluma as well. We want to take a short break right now. When we come back, of course, we shall drill deeper on this and after other issues as well, looking at the Western politics and, of course, also sentiments that were said during Kamaru's burial as well, as far as the handshake is concerned. You don't want to miss that as well. I'll be remiss if I don't read one or two tweets I should say, from our viewers this morning. Nixon Kyoko is saying, without caring about the big budget, it costs waste of time and above all loss of lives. Are we hearing this as a result of the handshake? IBC, what else have you not told us? I mean also the taxpayers. We have Kennedy Obogi saying results acceptable should be from a transparent process. The problem is the process, not the result. Result can be any number or numbers. Also, we have Abur Ali saying, I don't agree politicians only do things in the best interest, not keeping in mind the next generation, but next elections for their convenience. IBC must remain independent. And Boni Mtetezi has summarized it all. Also, we have Zachary Ocheng saying Jacoy is sparkling today. He was missing last week. He seems to have bathed twice to compensate for last week. Anyway, election is a political process, so should the commissioners be a product of political compromise and negotiation? Jacoy was missing here last week because, yes. Well, you need to defend yourself just a minute before I take a short break. What happened last week?
No, you know, I have people in my family who are very mad at you.
I really apologize.
But the problem was fixed.
It was fixed. Yeah. Yes, so Zachary is not really amused that you've taken your bath twice today. Thank you very much for your valued company. We take a short break right now. When we circle back, we continue with the discussion this morning. Don't go away. Right. Welcome back. You're watching People and Politics here on Live. Of course, we continue apace with the conversation, and we promise to circle back with more details about the IEBC reforms as well, as we're winding up on it and looking at a raft of other issues as well. Let's just continue with Senator Cheriot. You had something to say, straining at the leash to do so.
Yeah, the point that I'm trying to say is that now that the country is in this phase, there are things we agree on, there are things we don't agree on. That's why I think, Otiende, my point was, this debate is meaningless to the extent of who won, who did not win, because on that one, everybody is entitled to their opinion, much as we understand, of course, the final verdict on matters of determining who won and who didn't win lies with the Supreme Court, and we know what they said about that. But that is not useful at the moment. What is useful is this very important discussion that we are having this morning about IEBC and what they are supposed to achieve for us as a country. Two things come to mind. Dibal, just for the record of viewers, I serve in Parliamentary Service Commission as a commissioner, and therefore with the benefit of serving in one of the Chapter 15 commissions, I know the kind of struggles that exist between commissions and secretariat.
Yes.
And therefore, and even the time that we were doing the elections amendment laws, just at the near end of last parliament, if I am not wrong, I sat in the committee, and one of the strongest views that people kept on bringing before us when they brought their submissions is whether we could think through changing of the architecture of how IEBC is managed, where you have the commissioners and the secretariat. On many occasions, like right now what you are doing, we are throwing all the flack at the commission. Yet you are forgetting that the work of commissioners in a Chapter 15 commission like IEBC is simply oversight. They do not give management directives. Sometimes you find yourself in a situation where, as a commission, you've strongly expressed yourself on a particular manner, but the management team, led by your CEO, is not so keen on executing those decisions. I have seen it a lot, even in the commission that I serve in. And therefore, there's this thinking on many occasions where we've said, is it time, given that elections are so involving, emotive, and subject to so many other machinations, is it time that we consider, for example, the chairman of IEBC to be an executive chairman? Then we just give him a structure of people that work with him together with the commissioner, so that we get to involve them on a day-to-day basis. Of course, if you listen to the secretariat as well, they hold the view that actually commissioners should be just serve on part-time basis, meet twice or 3 times a year, give strategic policy direction, and get the hell out of the building, because they feel there's just too much interference. For the record, all the during the days of from Kivuitu to Isa Kasan, and now to the poster boy for incompetence, Mr. Chebukati, we have never thought of what is the role of the secretariat in all these disputes we continue to have. Are they keen and active agents in all these the kind of disputes that keep on arising? We are always so keen on changing the commissioners, but never focus on what was the exact role that was played by the secretariat. And it is important that even as we go forward, part of the things, recommendations that we need to make for IEBC is that we need to vet also the secretariat, so that if you find there are people whose conduct is not in tandem with a senior manager at an institution as important as IEBC, then they should not serve there. Even the proposals, just look at a simple proposal that sometimes, and this is another thing that Kenyans had extremely strong views about, this position of a chairperson being a lawyer or a practicing advocate of 15 years. Surely, what is so legal about being chairman of IEBC, yet you have a whole legal directorate that advises you on legal matters? And this is my personal opinion. I do not think that lawyers are the most competent people in terms of holistic view of life. These people go to university for 4 years to study only one subject. Their understanding and view of the world is so limited to legal issues. To respond to that. No, I said it is false. I said it is my view. It is my view of a legal profession. I do not think there is anything so legal about being IEBC chairman in execution of your role.
Thank you.
Even an auditor will perhaps serve best, because all you're doing is auditing numbers.
Okay, Bore Halwale.
Seeing and hearing the hot exchange between Honorable Kuria and Jakoyo confirms what I said at the beginning, that this kind of discourse is actually a rigmarole. It is meaningless talk. However, probably it might help if I could pick up on the point raised by Kuria about the insider view. 2 things. Kuria and I were insiders, have insider information on the new electoral laws, because we were the ones who sat on the committee that drafted them. It had been our strong position that committee remains an oversight committee, just like we had an oversight committee for implementation of the new constitution.
Correct.
But it was ignored, and this is one of the reasons why we ran into this
by Jakoyo and Duale.
Yes. One of the reasons why we ran into these problems. Let me beg my brother Jakoyo. The point you are raising about whether we won as NASA or we lost, I think as an insider, again, where none of you were, allow me to tell the Kenyans the following: that the court gave us a second chance when we said that the election has been stolen and thank you to my good lawyer, Amolo Tiende, you helped us. We were given a second chance. And because of professional dishonesty and lack of integrity, we, the top leadership of NASA, we woke up one day and all of a sudden, out of the blues, Orengo was there without reference to any of the other core principles, together with our flag bearer. They just announced from the blues that we are not going to participate in the next election. So we did not even know what to tell our voters. So we were forced, because of collective responsibility, to go back and tell our people, don't go and vote. If you had asked me at that time why, I had no answer. So this dishonesty boils down to only one thing. People, especially leaders, must be men and women of integrity, and agreeing with you, Jacoyo, the reforms in the IEBC must be accompanied with reforms in the Constitution. My last point is that because of that impunity, which was demonstrated by Orengo and Co., by refusing us to go to respect the court order that go and repeat the election, has now converted the Kenyan election into a judicial process. You move from the High Court, you go to the Court of Appeal, you go to the Supreme Court, people are still not accepting. We must reduce the level of participation of the judiciary in making decisions on behalf of the voters. If the judiciary must be involved, I hold that there should only be one incidence, so that once one court has said that the election was fair, it remains that way, it should not be contested. If that was done, the billions of shillings we are burning today in pursuing the outcome of elections of 2017 would be being spent on development. Is it not a matter of concern that no case concerning a governor has been settled up to now? They have moved from High Court to Court of Appeal. They are now waiting for the Supreme Court. When the Supreme Court is going to rule, again, the people will not accept it and carry it to 2022.
Jacob Medio.
Yes, well, let me agree with Bonnie that in my thought process, I think we need to get the judiciary out of political process.
Yeah. Yes.
And I think that's how it works around the world. We need to look at these changes in a holistic manner, especially when we deal with the constitutional reform. And I think this is where our problem is. I want to tell Bonnie, though, that the committee where him and Moses Kuria and 5 others sat was compromised. It was compromised by the state. They gave Kenya a bad law. And Bonnie cannot get away with the mere fact that IEBC procured satellite phones that were supposed to be used for transmission but were delivered after elections. So you cannot authenticate the results. And my friend, Senator Cheriot, cannot lie to us. He promised us, he promised Kenyans that in the next show, I will provide the figures that show we won. They've lost. I know that for a fact. And I also know that neither side got 50 plus 1%.
Thank you.
So what am I saying? This committee that Bonnie and Moses want to be so, to think that, make us think that they did Kenya proud. They were paid money not to do a good law. And when the day, I was the first opposition to that report in Parliament. What is accusing Halwale of? It's not true. I was the first opposition and I convinced Duale that this is a bad law for our elections. And on a Thursday when it was brought, we kicked it out. The following week, I was actually summoned to the Prime Minister's office. And when I went there, I found the people I was calling the president's men, the Florence Mutuas, the Mbadis, and all those people. When we came to Parliament, Duale was the first one to say, Baba amesema. And a bad law passed. And we went to an election that was not going to be authentic. We knew, I knew it, and I told everybody, all and sundry, that the people who sat in that committee they made sure that the current Jubilee government, as it was before, was going to be back in parliament. And they were compromised, and I can talk about it.
Right, let's wind up with Moses Kuria on the IEBC reforms, and we move on to other stories.
But I have to respond.
No. Well, let's hear from. No, you will get a chance. No, I'm sorry to butt it. Let's hear from Moses Kuria. Moses Kuria,
I must respond to you.
You will as well. Let's just give him his chance as well. We go sequentially. Moses Kuria.
You know, first of all, let me just say this about the committee, maybe trying to respond to Honorable Jacob Video. You don't need to be compromised. You can just be sometimes negligent or incompetent. Let's not get to this thing of thinking that people are always doing things, because sometimes you're just innocently naive or incompetent and you convince it for money is not everything. And I do remember that time, you know, we had several points.
Yes.
For example, on party hopping, where we had to consult. I remember calling the former Prime Minister about the issue of party hopping and seeking his support that we actually be firm on the issue of party hopping. And that is how Honorable Jacob Midiwo, became an independent. Otherwise, he would have stood on Chama Cha Sungura or some other, or some other party. So we really did achieve, something in this respect, Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And that's how it should be. I mean, we need to consult on matters irrespective of our political positioning. Yeah, I should feel free to call Honorable Aida and say, what do you think this is good for the country? Now, our preoccupation with the form instead of substance is our undoing. That these things of electronic transmission seems to have superseded what actually happens at the ballot. And the most important thing is actually verifying the will of the voter at the ballot box. So this thing of Fungua Sava seems to negate the whole essence of the will of the voter. And I think that is one mistake that we did as a committee. That we actually elevated the issue of electronic transmission, the issue of electronic voting, electronic management of our elections, over actually verifying the will of the voter at the ballot box. Today, if I want to know what happened in where Jacob Midiwo come from, I need to just go to all the polling centers in Game constituency and ask myself, this voter, did he want to vote for Jacob Midiwo or Elisha Odiamo? Yeah, that's the most basic thing, and I think why I need to go back is there. But let me say this, Dibal. In computing language,
yes,
we talk about three things. The hardware. And in this case, the hardware is our election laws. And we need to revisit the hardware. And that, I think, is what Honorable Kaluma is doing. And I fully support his initiative. Not more so the substance, but the initiative to do it now, not in the future. Not to bury these things, bury our head in the sand like the proverbial ostrich.
Yes.
I will support Honorable Kaluma in his initiative. I'll ensure that we fast track it. And I will ensure that Parliament retakes this initiative. Because we don't need to wait again for Baba again, or for the president to come and tell us what to do. And we are Parliament. We represent the sovereign will of our people. And yet we wait on the issue of electoral reforms for our principals to tell us what to do. So I think what Kaluma has done is very important, and I personally, as a member of Parliament, I'll ensure that his initiative is embraced by Parliament, and we use Parliament again to start looking at where the rains started beating us. Other than the hardware, we have the software. And I think that's what Otiende Omolo is saying, the Constitution. So we need to look at these things, hardware vis-a-vis the software. But the most important thing is your political system, which is neither the law nor the Constitution. It's our hearts. It is our will. Unless we change ourselves, unless we change the political system to embrace democracy and to stop hypocrisy and stop, playing monkey games with Kenyans,
yes,
and thinking that an election can only be fair if I win. If we don't change the political system, which is our hearts, our souls, and our minds, the hardware and the software will not help us.
All right. Well, let's get Otiende Omolo winding up and Boni Khalwale. All right.
Yeah, just some quick things.
Erun Churiot says that you're studying one subject.
First of all, I think that's why no matter how much he works hard, Senator Cheriot can only be educated, not learned. Because he clearly does not know. He does not know that the reason lawyers are called learned is because they are required actually as part of the course
They are not
to
called,
study.
they call themselves.
Senator Cherot,
Let him finish. Let him finish.
Don't be jittery. They are actually required to study a lot more. As a lawyer, I even end up studying, accounts. I study even part of medicine. I study a lot of things, and it takes 7 years, not 4 years. So, Senator, if you take the next 7 years to be a lawyer, you will get to understand why they're called learned friends. But having said that, too, I agree with him that we need to relook at the question of the structure of the IEBC. Except, Senator, it is not a problem of the Constitution. It was a problem of the legislation. As a matter of fact, under the Constitution right now, the commissions and the commission chairs are executive. They are not just for oversight. And in fact, the secretary to the commission is an employee and must serve at the pleasure of the commissioners. The mistake that happened in the IEBC is that the secretary was also elevated to be something they call the chief electoral officer or something like that, and therefore assumes powers that should not be there in the Constitution, and that is something that must be corrected. Indeed, the High Court has actually spoken on this and has said a commission cannot operate without the substantive commissioners because they are executive. So that needs to be corrected. But having said that, lastly, and Dr. Halwale is a man who I like a lot because historically I've looked up to him. He's a man with a rich history, but a shaky present and a doubtful future in his politics right now. And that is why, when it comes to the question of who won or who lost, he does not comment on that. He cannot comment on whether Raila won or Uhuru lost because of his current difficulties. So instead,
what is the current difficulty?
His current difficulty, and we've discussed this, and there's nothing wrong with that, is that he has chosen to cast his lot with the deputy president in his future endeavors, which is okay. But having said that, therefore, you can't bring that debate to the question of who decided not to go for the second round of election and why. Because the order was to have a second round, not that you must participate. It becomes a right. But lastly, the question of the judiciary and politics. We are a very interesting country, and we keep going 5 years, 2 steps back, 2 steps forward, and so we keep kind of going back and forth. In 2007, when the presidential election was heavily contested, and the ODM team decided not to go to court, the High Court, because it was challenged, it becomes so emotive that we had to bring Kofi Annan and a host of international experts to give us some sort of peace.
Thank you.
So we decided consciously, which you don't find in most constitutions, to give the Supreme Court the ultimate say in terms of a presidential petition. And indeed, I believe that that is what has prevented us from going to war. Because where we were in 2007, we could easily have gone to war in 2013 and 2017. But the hope and promise that there's one final arbiter who can give you a judicious and independent decision has helped us. The only mistake that has happened, and on that I agree with Dr. Halwale, is that the Supreme Court then also extended its jurisdiction to accept more than just presidential petitions. And so everyone, from an MCA to an MPA, is entitled to go all the way. But now they are struggling to control that, because now even the jurisdiction that they allowed for going,
yes,
they are indeed trying to narrow it. But it's something they should not have created in the first place. But they are narrowing to show that it is only if you demonstrate that there are constitutional interpretation issues. But that's where the problem is. But I think that it would do well if we leave the Supreme Court only for the most contested presidential election. And for all others, we try and limit them. We try to limit them in terms of time, which was good, the 6 months. But the 6 months do not mean anything if you spend 6 months in every court as you go from the magistrate court to the High Court to the Court of Appeal. So on that, I agree that it will require to be looked.
All right. All right, we need to move on. Just to read, yes, Bonakola, I promised. Briefly. Yeah. But you don't need to belabor the point. We want to move on with other subjects, please. No. Bonnie is last. Bonnie is last on this.
When you give Otiende, it means you have to give us all a fresh round.
Bear with me. I want to appeal to my two brothers. Jakoyo and Otiende to bear with others, even when you don't agree with them. To throw an allegation like the way Jakoyo has done, that our committee was bribed. As the lawyers say, he who alleges
Must prove.
must prove.
Said it
I
on
will
the
not
floor
go
of the
that
House.
route. I will not go to that route. So that it is clear to Kenyans, when we sat on that joint parliamentary committee, we were paid sitting allowance by Parliament. However, the government of the United States of America said that you are doing a unique job. You need to be encouraged. So they called Orengo and called Kreitu and told them that how can we be able to extend some money so as to encourage these members. And Orengo and Kreitu went and sat with Kodek. I want it to be very clear. Went and sat with Kodek. And Kodek told them, the government of the United States cannot pay money to people like you. It cannot be accepted in the Congress. So you need to pay the money to some organization like an NGO. The truth must come out. I have spent the whole of my life, Jakoyo, in making sure that I don't eat other people's money, and I'm not about to change. So it was agreed between Kreitu and Orengo, and they communicated to us when we were seated. I recall in an evening at Mayfair Hotel that they have taxed Orengo to identify an NGO where the money will be deposited. So you, as a member of ODM, today, before you go anywhere else, go and ask Orengo, when he gave them the NGO, how much money was deposited and what became of that money. It is very important. People, you can't just...
Let me weigh in on here.
You'll weigh in. Let me conclude.
I want to put Karole Totten.
This is a very serious
Because,
matter.
you know, I was part of the team.
Yes.
And this issue was left to Orengo. And that's how to learn about it. So also in the interest of transparency, I want Orengo to tell us how much did he receive and through which NGO. And I want my share. If you don't want yours, I want mine.
You should post that in a panel where you share
You're
with him.
making Otiende so uneasy. you know, the newspapers told us last week that in Luo Nyanza there are factions.
No.
And the faction led by Orengo is deputized by Otiende.
There are no factions.
You're discussing Otiende's post.
Let him clarify.
The point is that when you make such, just like you're telling Midiwo not to make allegations against you, unfortunately you are here. I think it is fair that you and Moses, who served with Senator Orengo, should make those allegations in a panel where you are together. Because for us, me and Senator Orengo, we cannot say anything.
Yes.
You are
We don't know.
by Jakoyo.
Well, we are only hearing that you received money, you know, and we don't know.
Okay. So in conclusion, appealing to my brother Omolo, you know, I do not understand why some members of ODM, mainly from one community in this country, is so keen on what Boni Khadwal is doing politically. For God's sake, this election of 2017, and Jakoyo, you'll bear me, is the first time I've worked with you guys. But for all the 4 elections that I have won, I've always faced an opponent either from ODM or backed by the ODM party leader Raila, and I've always defeated you squarely. So now, when you raise the issue of Khadwale working with the DP,
Right.
For just a minute.
We're going there.
No. Let me make my point. Don't interfere with my point.
Okay, fine.
When you raise the issue, Omolo, of Khadwale working with the DP,
Yes.
what is it that you want me to explain?
I've
The
not
truth
sought any
is this.
explanation.
The truth is this. ODM is now walking its path. I and Fort Kenya, we are walking a different path. If those paths cross in future, we'll work together. If they don't work together, if they cross with the path of deputy president, we will work with him.
So
I want you today, Jakoyo and Omolo, you go home and tell Amolo, you go and tell your colleagues that ODM and Raila Odinga are not the marking scheme of the politics of the Republic of Kenya.
Can I say something?
Okay. Kalwale maybe can respond because we have this also particular clip from the Sunny Nation. Bullfighting Kalwale upstages Ruto's allies in Western Kenya. Kalwale appears to be mellowing and rising to be Ruto's pointsman in Western region. In fact, also some of the Harambes, I think you are actually the person who's being sent to preside over Harambes in Western Kenya. All right. On October the 6th, Mr. Kalwale represented Mr. Ruto at Harambee in aid of Christchurch in Amalemba. Tellingly, he was with Frank Kibet, Mr. Ruto's long-serving aide. But we need to remind you what Mr. Ruto said about you. He said it's unfortunate that all Kalwale does is feed bulls on bang and other drugs and then head to bullfighting contest. He's a leader without a vision and has nothing meaningful to offer his community. This is what Mr. Ruto said at a campaign rally at Mahoho Secondary School. You remember that?
Go on.
It's done.
Can I? Okay. Now, this is the answer.
And you have said, we just want to see this turnaround, of course, on you as well, that the Luyas have supported Raila Odinga for 15 good years, but we have nothing to show for it. Time has come to make new friends, including the Kalenjin, who are our neighbors, because we wasted time campaigning for Mr. Odinga.
Thank you. If you must debate me, you must face me with facts. Nothing less, nothing more. Tell me, in that statement, what I have said which is not factual. A, have we supported Raila for 15 years? The answer is yes. After the 15 years...
You have nothing to show for it?
Do we have anything to show for it? The answer is no. The intention of supporting him was for him to lead us into government. First round, second round, third round, 15 years later, he has failed. What is not true about that? But more importantly now, to answer you, let me answer you using my community's parable of the Luya leopard.
Yes.
The hunting skills of a leopard. A leopard subdues the prey, not so much because of its speed, but because of the hunting skills. How? When the animal is grazing, antelope for example, it sees the leopard perched on the tree, and it counts one leopard. The leopard runs and goes to the valley. The same antelope sees it, counts another leopard. It jumps again and goes to an anthill and perches there. Then the antelope fears that there are so many leopards, one on the tree, one on the antelope, in the valley, another one on the anthill, and it's going to be subdued. Ladies and gentlemen of the Orange Democratic Movement, you are now faced with the hunting skills of the bullfighter of Kakamega. I'm going to defeat you the way I have defeated you 4 times before.
Okay.
Yes. Because I think Kalwale, having admitted
after Kalwale, I think it is Senator Cheruiyot. We'll come to you. We're going sequentially. Everyone has his time. Senator Cheruiyot.
Kalwale has kept challenging the two of us. That's why.
Yeah.
So there are no questions for Cheruiyot or Kuria. So we need to deal with this.
You will. Senator Cheruiyot, please.
You know, what is happening to Boni Alwale is similar to something I've watched happen this week to a good friend of mine called Muhammad Ali, he of the Jichopevu fame.
Yes.
Where fellows like Otiende and Jakoyo and people from the leaders from the ODM formation are the most intellectually dishonest people you'll ever come to meet. They're dishonest because when you are with them, you pass every test that one can imagine of being a leader. You are a Democrat, you are a man of impeccable character, but the minute you cast your lot with someone they do not like, all of a sudden, like Jacoy has just made the revelations about money exchanging hands, it is because either you have been bought, you've been compromised, or all those kind of adjectives that they used to describe other people. The thing that I want to say to you this morning is in a very simple and sincere manner. Accept what Boni Alwale is telling you, that you are not the SI unit for either democracy or progressive leadership in this country. That people can look elsewhere and see solutions where there is none on your side. And there shouldn't be a whole facade and debate about it. When people do not agree with you, allow them to do it peacefully, Jakoyo. Do not call them name, do not call them thieves, do not call them all these kind of things that you used to describe those who hold different political persuasions. And there is a history to it, because every time you do that, it first starts by calling someone a bad name, and then the second minute you know, you become violent towards them, which is not fair.
What are you saying?
So,
wait.
no.
Hold on. What are you saying? That we are usually violent? Or what are you saying on national TV?
I have said it starts with first calling someone a bad name. Then the second thing that will follow is that you'll become violent towards them.
And
Like the old English, English saying.
NASA team of that or what? I just want to get you clearly. Then I'll respond. Who are you accusing of that?
Yes.
That we in NASA call people names, then we are violent?
Yes.
Really?
Is it not true?
We'll get back to that.
Deba, I told you not to give Senator Cheriot a chance because he's speaking the same language as Bonnie.
Just like you're
And their language,
they're on the same tough.
but Otiende is an intelligent man. You know, when I speak the same language as him.
Well, how can you insult Jeriot that is not intelligent?
No.
Which example have you set with him?
Same language as Otiende.
No, that is not fair. No, that is not fair.
You had a
No, I have
No,
not
no,
said
no,
that.
no.
Those are your words. But
When you're cornered,
No, Bonnie
debate.
Kalwale, excuse me. I'm sorry to bat it.
Don't throw
No.
brickbats. Debate.
But now you also
Cheriot is here.
Let him finish.
He's here.
now you are just
Better
interrupting. First of all, let me say this. Bonnie Kalwale has just admitted on national television that they were paid money by Americans to bungle Kenyan elections.
Okay, your own words.
He has just said, and I invite all and sundry to listen to what he has just said, that Orengo, Kiraitu was given money by the Americans. They need to reveal. He has just said, and that was my original allegation, that they were compromised to do a bad law for Kenyans. And I had said that I think 893 million worth of satellite phones were occasioned by that law, and they never arrived until after the elections. Bonnie has, Bonnie, let me just make another accusation, which you may never have been paid, or Moses. But I also know many things happened in winter at night. And don't you dare me, because I can.
But you need to be clear. Is it political or otherwise? When you're talking
No,
about Windsor?
it was meant to do a law that favored the Jubilee government. And I refused. I even looked at my own party leader in the eye and I told him, you will live to regret it. I told him, because I knew what was her. And I said it on the floor of the House. I did. If you go at the debate that Thursday, the first day the report was tabled, said this is not a good law for our elections. And the systems were not listening to me. And they live to regret it. Hence the handshake. Now, what I wanted to say to Bonnie is that Raila Odinga is the barometer for Kenyan politics, because he has died for it, he has suffered for it, the constitution is in his name. He is the one, and I can tell you, if we don't use the Raila Uhuru handshake to reorganize this country, we will never have a country to speak with, to speak of.
Thank you.
In the next couple of days. But lastly, Debao, I wanted to persuade my brother Otiende about this issue of courts in politics. Please, let us change the constitution. Let us do this thing called party list. Let us give the dictatorial powers to the so-called party owners. It is costing individuals too much money and too much emotions.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Moses Kura, you refuse, or you're
I
not
totally
holding
refuse.
So has he expounded on how you were
just a
bribed?
moment. You'll get your chance, please.
Can
we hear from Moses Kura?
Nothing but utmost respect for the Honorable Raila Odinga. He's my friend of several decades. Someone I know very well. But this whole thing of saying so and so is a barometer of this country. Am I the thermometer? Can't I be the thermometer myself? No. If that one's a barometer.
No, you are very perfect.
It is totally wrong, and it's this personalizing. Instead of creating the democratic culture, instead of creating institutions that are going to outlast me and you. But there is one thing I know about Raila Odinga, is that one day he'll die, just like I will. So we cannot predicate the whole country on one man. And this whole thing of changing constitution to bribe him to be peaceful. I am peaceful because the constitution and because our national values and ethos require of me, obligate me to be peaceful and to be civilized and to be civil. But this whole thing of let's do the constitution to bribe him so that he can accept and to be peaceful and to be... No, I'm not sure even that is what Raila would want himself. But you guys have created a monster out of an otherwise innocent man who, you know, it should be just primus inter pares, first among equals, even within your party. So what does that make such an intelligent brain like Otiende Amolo?
But Moses
He's
Kuria,
not a thermometer, a barometer, a telescope, or whatever it is. It's totally wrong.
but listen to what Mutai Ngunyi says, Moses Kuria. He says that he describes ODM leader as a grandmaster of politics of change. And he says, quote unquote, that is not it. I'm just reading. He says, no one can smell change as freshly as Raila does. And that is why we cannot argue with him over the referendum. If Raila says it will happen, it will surely happen. This is Mutai Ngunyi, the political analyst. No. This is just a moment. You you want to respond to that because you're the one who's saying
it's a packet of crap, my friend.
It's a packet of crap.
Yes, because we need to believe
just
in 45 million
Let me
Kenyans.
finish. Yes.
This whole thing that our what do you call the north, the true north of this country is Raila Odinga is fatally wounded. It is not sustainable anymore. And I really want to support what my good friend Senator is saying. That Charity Ngilu was once called very bad names, including names which are like not acceptable from a masculine perspective. So the minute she moved from ODM, Musalia Mudavadi was a thief of cemetery. Kalonzo Musyoka, but the minute they move to the other side, salvation happens. But and it's because milk and honey, and they all lived like in the Garden of Eden.
But using a strong verbiage like the thief of the cemetery, that is a very strong verbiage to use.
That's what they called him that time. Sasa ni mweupe kama pamba. The minute you move to ODM, all your sins are forgiven. And your journey to heaven,
thank you.
They give you a ticket.
No, everybody deserves a second
chance. Just a moment. We'll come to... I think we need just to give you a piece of...
Salwale has spoken 3 times before I've spoken.
Okay.
I need to at least respond.
I agree.
Yes.
All right. I'm going to respond.
Yeah, that's fine. No. And you post a couple of questions to me, which remain unanswered. Now, my friend, Senator Cheruiyot, who usually is a very calm and collected man, has today claimed that NASA followers call people names and then become violent. I will not debate with that. I will let the Kenyans handle that if they think it is true or otherwise. But in terms of name calling, I am not sure anybody in this panel has done better than my friend Moses Kuria. I certainly have not called, even Dr. Halwale, who I challenged, I never called him any name. Senator Cheruiyot here knows I have never called him any name. So to accuse us in NASA of calling people names and becoming violent, maybe he has his evidence which he will table later. Now, Dr. Halwale asks me, what is wrong with him changing course and supporting someone else? Of course, and I stated it. There is nothing wrong, and that's the same question Senator Cheruiyot is posing. My problem with Dr. Halwale's current political position is twofold. One, when you support someone, come out and say you support them. Dr. Halwale has chosen the route of supporting DP William Ruto, but does not want to come out and admit that. Instead, he wants to frame it differently. He says, I am the deputy leader of Ford Kenya, and if Ford Kenya chooses to work different from ODM, it is their choice. There's nothing wrong with that. But that's not really where he is. Your friends are known by those you work with, those you pray with, those you sing with, and sometimes those you sleep with. Now, it is clear, and as you read the report, everything my friend Dr. Bwani Halwale has done in the last 2 months point in only one direction, that he has chosen to cast his loss with the deputy president. There's nothing wrong with that, except that he's framing it, and that's the second problem. Instead of framing it as a matter of political choice by Dr. Halwale, He's framing it as a matter of political choice by the community called Luyas against Raila, who is Luo. And so he frames it by saying, Luyas have supported Raila for 15 years. There's nothing to show for it. It is time we now moved our own way. Now, who made Dr. Boni Halwale the official Luya spokesperson? And when you then say, for 15 years, we've supported Raila and there's nothing to show for it, he forgets that in that course, the deputy to the prime minister was Musalia Mudavadi. He forgets that in that time, there were a significant number of cabinet slots from Luya land, even more than from Luo land, and you could count. But more importantly, he forgets that in all that time, the reason they were supporting Raila was to be president. He has never been president. So whatever that the hope was that you would get when he's president, he's yet to reach there. So how do you then blame a man? He himself wanted to be governor of Kakamega. Anybody who comes and says that I've supported Boni Halwale to be governor, he has not delivered anything as governor, would be lying, because he's not gotten there. My last point is this. I think it is good to debate things for what they are. I think we should focus, and I agree with Jacoy on this, but all these things should not be disjointed. The idea of changing dates that Chris Wamala is bringing, the idea of changing the structure in terms of election that my friend Kaluma is bringing, all these things should be structured in the context of re-examining the Constitution.
Absolutely.
Now, for me, the question of removing the judiciary from politics cannot be considered without considering the system of government. If you truly want to remove the judiciary from politics, then you must consider a parliamentary system. That is where the decisions are in a controlled environment, including who becomes president or prime minister, as the case may be, including removing them. It will not be for the court to interfere, because then parliament becomes that scene. And if you go that way, a lot of things will happen. One, if you go the full parliamentary way, including with proportional representation, even a lot of questions in terms of petitions will not arise. So taking them to court or not taking them. So my context is, these things should be all looked at as a package. And I agree that we should take the advantage of the Building Bridges initiative, but also consider it alongside other things that must happen, like looking at the boundaries of constituencies, looking at the number of seats, and all those, so that we deal with them in the constitutional review contemplated.
All right.
My comment is only limited to the assertion about my brother Jacoyo, that his party leader is the barometer of the politics of this country. I can assure you that could very well be true, looked at in the prism of your community. And if your community has chosen that he's the barometer of your politics, we who come from outside have a different view, i.e., that the future of this country, and indeed the future of democracy in the entire African continent, does not lie in strong personalities, but strong institutions. If you think I'm lying, ask yourself, if indeed he's the barometer, that was put to test in 1997. It was repeated in 2007, 2013, and 2017, when he was a candidate for president. How come, if he was the barometer, he did not win those elections?
Actually, I think it's a barometer for losing. The losing is so consistent.
No.
How to lose?
Okay. Here's my comment.
Yes, please.
You know, the Jacoyo said something quite telling, because when I asked him if he said my views are flawed because we agree with Boni Halwale, and he's intelligent because he agrees with Otiende Amolo. And you know, the thing that pricks me about it is that Jacoyo is the least qualified person to define what intelligence is or what it is not. Because here comes a man who, among us, 45 million Kenyans, we have looked for a presidency. But for all the elections that he has voted, all he sees is a man from his tribe, and not just among us his tribesmen, a cousin, to be specific, that he sees nobody else qualified. Then can such a man really advise us on intelligence?
And
Briefly.
we supported Kibaki
Yes.
I voted for Kibaki.
Because of your cousin.
We did, yes, because of my cousin. The barometer, because of the barometer. The barometer of politics. You know, it would really amaze me to leave these studios thinking that Boni Halwale thinks Raila lost 207 elections.
But we're not going there.
No. That's what Boni has said.
Briefly, can you just...
But what I wanted to say, Deba, the change we need to make as a country, now talking about the change of the Kaluma's bill and all those things, in context, we must do an election where, first of all, money is not an issue. I think we are spoiling our people with money. The people who have stolen from our public coffers are pumping in too much money, including the money Boni Halwale is working with today in churches. Stolen money, 100%. Number two, the politics that we want is not that one that puts us apart. Moses Kuria, let me advise you for free, because we rarely see you here. Today that we have you, I must take 10 seconds just to tell you that the issue of Kikuyus and Kalenjins in this country, the person who will sort out the two of you is Raila Odinga. And if you don't look at it very carefully, you will have a lot of problems, because I'm now a private citizen, and I hear what they are saying. And I hear what you just let me with Chariot here outside the door, away from the microphone. What he will say is not what you think you want to hear. Thank you very much.
Okay, Moses Kuri, you want to get a rejoin on that?
You know, first of all, I want to object to Senator Chariot saying that Honorable Jacoyamidi's views are because he is Raila's cousin. So on behalf of all Raila's cousins, let me protest and say that's not the right way to look at it. We have got our own independent views irrespective. But this whole thing of, first of all, a parliamentary system. We were told the other day that some members of parliament, by their own account, they were being bribed with as little as 10,000 shillings.
3,000.
3,000 inside the toilet. So if you give us the power to elect a president, he will be nicknamed Bonacho. Yeah? Because he has been elected from toilet. I am warning Kenyans. Do not give us, I'm a member of parliament, look at me. Do not give us the power to elect who is going to be your leader. Because we are going to be given shit money in the toilet. Yeah? And that is the kind of shitty leader we are going to give you. Don't make that mistake. And if you do that, don't say I didn't warn you. Now, in terms of, the allegation, I mean, this whole notion about Kikuyus, Kalenjins, prophets of doom have been, trying to predict all manners of, apocalyptic outcomes in terms of these relationships. But I always say, and we are being told to change the constitution so that we bring Kenyans together. Kikuyus and Kalenjins did it in 2013. We came together. There was no constitution. We didn't change anything. And this is what I'm calling the operating system. By the way, if we remove the pretense and the hypocrisy of this country, we will be united tomorrow. Even if you write 45 pieces of constitutions or the laws, and you don't change our souls and our hearts, you're not going to achieve anything.
Thank you.
So I want to mind the handshake. I love the handshake.
Thank you.
I love the fact that I can walk in Kisumu and freely and without Otieno Molo setting his
Thank you,
boots.
Moses.
But the fact that we give to ourselves a constitution that told us every 5 years, go to the polls and look for leaders of your own choice.
Thank you. Just to get also clarification from you, Boni, because I think Aaron Cheriot, as we're winding up right now, I had mentioned that you could be the SIU unit, of course, of the Luo politics. Have you also turned out to be a prophet? Because you say that you will show the community the direction to take in the 2022 general election.
I think it is not fair for you as a journalist.
But this is your sentiment.
Just a minute.
Yes.
Why are you afraid of what I'm about to say? Hear it.
Okay, let me hear it.
It is not good, not fair. It's not good for you to demonstrate to Kenyans that you don't understand what SI means. SI in no way means that you are somebody who can foresee issues. That is simply the international standard.
All right,
it is called Système International.
Fantastic.
It's a French word. So all he was saying, can you relax?
Yes, I'm
What's
relaxing.
wrong with the youth? You are embarrassing the youth.
Okay.
Why don't you drink?
Okay,
why don't you drink from my knowledge?
Okay, let me drink from your knowledge.
You see, where we have reached politically, we did not happen there. We have earned this journey. Why some of us speak and some people, not all of them, listen, is because we have earned where we are. So if in the process of taking a position, some people or many people from my community and beyond will accept that position, don't blame me. I have earned it.
All right. So you're the international standard unit.
Well,
you're burning shots.
yeah, so
Otiende Amolo.
is the barometer of lawyer politics.
Barometer is
but Raila is not the one.
I never said
that. That is the context of
Barometer.
this. I think only two things. One is that anybody who has been in this country knows that Raila Amolo Odinga is easily the most experienced politician practicing in this country today. And anybody who argues with that is arguing with history. Number two, what we need to do now, in my view, is to coordinate the efforts. There are too many efforts: the IEBC change effort, the elections date change effort, the change in terms of number of constituencies and counties, the proposal in terms of the Building Bridges initiative, the initiative to reduce cost of government, and the question of censors. We need to bring this together. And in my view, I think it is time the two speakers of parliament sat down so that we have a joint committee of the Senate and the National Assembly purposed to look at all this in context.
Thanks. Thank you so much. Aaron Cheriot, your parting shots, please.
Just two things that I want to quickly say. I just want to appeal to my friends Jakoyo and Otiende that appreciate the dynamics of our politics, that it's different contextually where we come from. Because if where you come from, you are elected based on how many times you sing Raila's name, it's not the same for us. It's different. We are measured by other things. And therefore, when we don't do it, do not begrudge us.
Thank you.
In conclusion, I agree with the thought, and I think I was among the first people to say this last week, that only way that we can figure it out, because it's now clear that almost all Kenyans agree that there are to be certain changes to the constitution. Then let us hear out in an organized format what everybody holds and thinks that should change in our constitution.
Jacob Medio, your parting shots,
format,
please.
but let me remind Moses Kuria and Aaron Cheriot that the word a thief is not in their vocabularies.
What?
Thief. And Bonnie, it is in your vocabulary. So whatever you're trying to sell is going to be very difficult to sell. Because we will be out there. We shall protect the public good. Anybody who is a thief will not be our president.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Moses Kuria?
I want to assure Jakoyo and everyone that as Kenyans we are going to be. You do not hold the monopoly of telling us who is clean, who is not clean, what is right, what is not right. But there you are going to be in for a very rude shock. I thought that you will take the 5 years that the people of Game give you a break to think reasonably. But thank you. Let me tell you something, we'll be there today, tomorrow, and the day after.
Thank you. Thank you very much, panelists. I want to thank you. Thank you so much. And of course, I was expecting also Moses Kuria will have clarified the Punguza Mizigo initiative that you started.
Yeah, it is very much on.
Yeah, it is yours.
That
was your idea?
That was my idea. I was here, but Ekuro Court is jobless, so I've let him run with it. For the time now, I think I'm going to appoint him the CEO of Punguza Mzigo.
Thank you.
While I remain, the vice chairman.
Thank you. We'll get another chance, of course. Thank you very much.